Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from beyond the Outer Rim, just south of the Rishi Maze on a watery planet named Camino, I'll be your cloner, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, the freshly hatched clone and my co-host, Sean Paul Ellis. How's it going, sir?
David. I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
I'm doing real good. I'm a little concerned. You're looking a little peaky at the moment. Are you feeling okay after you just hatched out of your accelerated aging chamber?
It's been an experience,
Okay.
but I'm making the best of the situation I've been handed. And I've found out that I've got about 1,000 other brothers. So what's not to love about it?
Yeah, that's a good day. And speaking of your brothers, I feel like maybe you've got a couple there with you. Would you like to introduce them to the listeners out there?
I got some bros here that I'm super excited about. We have two returning guests. Thankfully, we have my other clone, Tony Lazzaroni.
Yes.
He's the director of Crowded Elevator Pictures.
I am Sean's clone.
Oh no.
He's a robot clone for some reason.
Set this up as a terrible idea. And we also have returning guest and friend of the show. We have Mike Visser, who is the owner of Flying Fish Coffee and Tea. So
Hello.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back, Mike.
Thank you.
You have
And
some
I know
successful clones there, bud. I'm jealous.
I know. Well, we should say first and foremost at the top, we know that this is an audio podcast, but we need to mention the fact that Mike is wearing a Wookiee Chewbacca onesie right now.
It's fantastic. It's warmer than it has any right to be. I wear it around the house just because it's cold sometimes.
This was his Halloween costume. This was probably the best thing I saw at Target during all of Halloween.
Halloween was an excuse for me to have this in my closet. Oh, it's Halloween. That's why I need this. It's definitely the reason I
That's a
got
good
it.
cover
Yes.
story, definitely. To be honest, I just thought that was Mike when he walked in. I didn't realize it was a costume.
He is really that hairy. Honestly, no. If he takes it off, the only difference is there's no sash.
That's his dress
Like
down.
Wookiee bandolier.
That's his business casual Wookiee, just no sash. Now looking good. Everybody's looking good tonight. We're all fanatics for this particular series. Mike actually brought this one to us, and specifically the episode we're going to talk about tonight. I don't know if Mike was aware that he's supposed to bring us terrible cartoons to talk about on this show, however.
I tried. And as I watched, I really wanted to be like, oh, this. Nope, I love it.
Yeah.
Nope.
He brought us a good one.
Can't find things that are really... There's some funny things in it, but...
No, there's definitely a lot to talk about. It's like Sean and I were talking about last week. We did the Star Wars Ewoks last week, and it was one of those things where we like shows that are on one end of the spectrum or the other, either really, really bad or really, really good. So luckily for this particular episode tonight, we've got something on the good end of the spectrum. Ewoks was surprisingly in the middle, so it kind of left us with like a shrug, like, I don't know what to talk about. But tonight, we are going to be talking about Star Wars The Clone Wars. And to give you a little bit of background on that, I'm going to throw it back over to Sean.
Yes. Star Wars The Clone Wars is an American CGI animated television series created by George Lucas and is produced by Lucasfilm Animation. The series is launched with an animated feature film, which was released in theaters on August 15th, 2008. Episodes debuted on Cartoon Network on October 3rd of that same year and ran for 6 seasons and 121 episodes. The 6-season episodes were made available in the U.S. for streaming on Netflix, along with the entirety of the series beginning on March 7th, 2014. So if you have Netflix, holidays are upon us. Time to binge, guys. I'm after Jessica Jones, but then fill it in with some Clone Wars, because this one is fantastic.
I don't know. I have Master of None on my list. Do I need to get to that?
Oh, you
first?
need to get to Master of None as well.
Yeah, clear that out first, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
A project known as Clone Wars Legacy adapted unproduced story arcs into other formats that began in August of 2014.
Yeah, so there you go. There's a brief history of Star Wars The Clone Wars. And before I get into the series synopsis of what the show is actually about, Tony, I'm glad you mentioned Aziz Ansari's special on Netflix. Is that correct?
Well, it's his show.
It's his show.
His show,
Yeah,
okay. I wasn't sure if it was just a special or if it was a full run show. He actually had a tweet the other day. I think there's a bit in one of his it's either a stand-up routine or it's actually featured in the show, where he's talking about a friend of his that comes up and pitches this story of Car Man, about a man who turns into a car. And then someone, I think it was at Complex Media, actually was like, Aziz, there's this cartoon called Turbo Teen that actually happens. So we obviously had to tweet him, because this on Saturday Morning Cartoons, Turbo Teen was our first ever episode. and it's still one of the most insane fucking things we've ever watched. So we suggest that you not only go check out that first episode of our podcast, but also check out Aziz Ansari's Master of None as well on Netflix. As for Star Wars: The Clone Wars, it is set in the fictional Star Wars galaxy during the 3 years between the prequel films Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones and Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. Now, it's not to be confused with Star Wars Clone Wars, the 2003 animated series created by Genndy Tartakovsky that took place during the same timeline. Star Wars The Clone Wars follows the conflict between the Republic and Separatists, with General Grievous and Count Dooku acting as the main antagonists. Most of the episodes follow the diplomatic adventures of Anakin Skywalker and his Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. As the series goes on, Anakin drifts closer to the dark side while Ahsoka's own rebellious personality continues to develop. So this was kind of a tough one to put in context for people who are just coming into this and think that, hey, we're talking about a Star Wars cartoon, how hard could it be? But there's a lot of, you've got Attack of the Clones, you've got The Clone Wars, and you've got Clone Wars. It all kinds of gets jumbled up. But I think the easiest thing to remember is that this takes place between episodes 2 and 3. And that's probably the easiest way to just kind of keep track of the characters and why certain people are here and why certain others are not. Mike, like I said, you brought this one to our attention, so can you just kind of give us your experience with coming to this series and just kind of your thoughts on the series overall?
Yeah, I mean, so coming to the series, I picked it up when it showed up on Netflix because I'm a fan of Star Wars. And Star Wars for me had always been like, boom, light side, good. Boom, dark side, evil. They fight. That's pretty much all there is to it. But the Clone Wars, I don't know if like somebody was like, hey, write a TV show and then just didn't look in on them for 5 years. Because they put all kinds of nuance. Like sometimes you're rooting for the Jedi and sometimes you think the Jedi are a bunch of dicks. And you're not sure why they just sacrificed 10,000 clones to save one guy.
Right.
And then they're like, oh, here's a whole set of series about how cool the clones are. And how individual they are. Oh, and they just dumped them in the trash. Like literally like, oh, you're not good enough anymore. Threw them in the trash.
Oh, man.
So they inject a ton of nuance into it. So by the end of it, I was just like, man, this took Star Wars, which was good versus evil, and just like filled in all of the gray area in between. And again, yeah, like sometimes I think somebody wasn't paying attention.
Yeah, it's
like
actually,
if they had known it, they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, it's great because it actually gives the showrunners time to actually expand and develop some of these characters and the storylines that happen between them. So I think that I love when, we have these massive universes that exist within the cinematic spectrum, but then I love when they actually do these little spin-off, well, not even spin-off, but just TV series that allow to expand into different stories. And I really think the fans respond to it well too. Now, before we get into, the theme song and whatnot for tonight's episode, Tony, were you familiar with this series before we watched it for tonight's discussion?
I was familiar with it in so much as Mike is my roommate and he is a Uber fan, and so I commonly know what things Mike is into because I will come home from work and he will be sitting on the couch. Being the owner of a coffee shop, he often has downtime in the afternoon, so he'll be at home watching through whatever his current binge focus is for that month. And so he went through this full season. Did it twice or?
No, I did this one once.
Did it once?
It's
okay.
6 seasons long.
Yeah.
It takes a little while to get through.
How many times have you watched Enterprise?
Twice.
Yeah. See? The entire series. So I'm not putting it past you not to go through something twice.
Fair.
But no, that was about the most that I'd had connection to it. I'm a big Genndy Tartakovsky fan as far as his work. So that one I was more familiar with between the two. The animation style on this one was kind of interesting, but that bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And, John, you had something else to add?
Yep.
For you?
Oh, no. I don't know how I missed this. I don't know how I missed this show on TV. I'm actually kind of shocked. Like, for as much as I love Star Wars, I would have thought that this would have been right in my wheelhouse, but for some reason, I just spaced. And then when we found this and watched this week, I had that moment where I thought to myself, oh shit, I've got a lot of television to watch now. I have 121 episodes that I need to go through, which is exciting to me.
Right.
To kind of fill in some of those gaps, as we mentioned about the series synopsis and where this takes place in terms of their timeline. That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's so much to explore in that. And like you said, even the one of the conversations and just, that we've talked about is just sort of some of the nuanced reactions that are in this show for CG like animation. I was really impressed at some of the moments where like you see Anakin get so pissed about something, and you see his brow furrow, and that like he just gets this look in his eye where I know that these are computer generated, but I have to think to myself like, oh, like some shit's really gonna go down, and I don't know.
I'm gonna murder some little kids. Look, it's that one that you get from
all these younglings are done.
Oh, and whenever he gets near the younglings with the lightsaber in this episode, I get a little like
yeah, right,
as you should. No, but it's great. I love watching it in that context because if you've seen, obviously the 6 movies, then you know what is going to happen after this series, story has run out. So you do see shades of that. You do see hints of that as the story progresses, and I think that adds kind of an extra tension that the writers are definitely very much aware of because they're just as big of fans as everybody else. So, for me personally, this was one that I think I had it on in the background on Netflix just while I was working, and it's honestly, it's not one of those shows. It's not one of those shows where it's just kind of like on in the background and you just kind of let it run. Like Mike was saying earlier on, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot of really developed and complex stories and the narratives that they bring into the show. So if you really want to get into it, then you kind of have to pay attention. You can't just kind of have it on in the background as a fun show.
Yeah.
For tonight,
it was really hard to narrow down even one episode because it was just like, where do you want to go? Who do you want to talk about?
Yeah.
There's so much going on to even try to pick one episode to like vaguely encompass what happened.
Yeah, and to Mike's point, we gave him the task of just picking one. He gave us a few that were like, they had a good range, and then we were just like, nah, just pick one, and we'll go with that, and we'll see what we can do. So he picked...
Not only that, he managed to pick one that is part of a 3-part episode.
Yeah, I think this entire season...
4 parts,
yeah,
excuse me.
I think all of season 5, just from doing a little bit of research on it, I think this was entirely composed of separate 4-part story arcs. So it's a tough one to dig into, but the episode by itself is so well done that you get an idea of what the situation is, and then you have hints of what happens afterwards, but it's only if you really watch the rest of them, so it's good writing, because it leaves you with cliffhangers, and yeah. Go ahead, Sean.
And Dave, I am...
Almost literally at the end.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. But, yeah.
I am dying to know what the resolution is to this story arc.
Yeah,
finish it?
Sean tried watching, the next 2, and then we ran out of time because we had to record the episode, so he's got to go back and watch like 2 more.
Oh, I might have to give you a spoiler.
Uh-oh.
I would like a spoiler.
Right.
I think I know who it is.
Okay, yeah. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
It's telegraphed.
But before we get into tonight's episode, let's talk briefly about this series theme song. Now, for folks who listened to our show last week with Star Wars Ewoks, you probably remember we were not too pleased with that theme song. This week, I think, is more of what we expected. So, Sean, do you want to kind of walk us through what your reactions were to this theme song?
I'm actually gonna throw it over to Tony.
Okay, cool.
So, for this theme song, I mean, it is exactly what I would want, which is it's true to Star Wars.
Yeah.
We mentioned Enterprise a little bit ago. One of the things I hated about that was that it completely just abandoned the theme and it went for like a modern rock song or something like that. I can't remember.
The worst song.
God, it was so terrible. But this one did what series like this should. You have one of the most epic soundtracks of all time already built and sitting there and waiting, and this is part of the same IP, so why don't you bring across that amazing theme?
All of this wonderful John Williams music.
Yeah.
Let's get on this.
Milk it
Let's
for
use
all
this.
it's worth.
And they do it not just within the theme song, but even within the movements and the transitions and things like that. They stick with the theme. The wipes that are going on during the episode are those same kind of funky, angled wipe across the screen type things that were, frankly, if I'm using them in iMovie or something like that as a video editor, are kind of cheesy and cheap, but they're very Star Wars. And when you put it in that Star Wars universe, I am 100% fine with like that's what I enjoy about them. That kind of almost what would have been chintzy is real and fun. So this theme was excellent. It's I heard your episode with the X-Men, so not quite to that level. It doesn't tie in. I don't hear this theme and think about this show. I think about the movies.
Right.
But was the Japanese version of this intro better than the American version?
I did not see the Japanese one yet.
Oh man, I'll tell you what, real weird. All of the Avengers are in it. There's a lot of stuff that you're just like, this doesn't make any sense, but it's in it, and I was so cool with it. I was very excited.
I mean, are we really gonna call this a theme song? Because it really just it's almost like a theme punch in the face.
Yeah.
Like the screen is black and just goes Star Wars and that's it.
Yeah,
And that's
just the logo just stamped right on your face. Yeah.
But there's no.
For like a minute. For a minute.
I had to rub my face afterwards because there was a Clone Wars impression on my cheek.
Yeah,
it's
I can still
nothing
see it
happens.
there. You got a little
it
bit on
just
you.
hits you with the
Yeah,
logo
it's still right here.
Yeah.
and the initial fanfare, and then it's over. That's it. That's the whole thing.
The thing that was really sad to me, Mike, was when you watch Netflix, when you watch a bunch of episodes on Netflix, over time Netflix gets hip to it and is like and thinks it thinks, hey, I'm Netflix,
Yep.
I know what you want, and it cuts out the theme song.
Yeah, let's skip ahead. Yeah.
That was really frustrating to me.
Yeah.
I was like, no, Netflix, I want this. I want this. No, okay, fine. Netflix knows best.
You have to do what The Walking Dead does and embed it 18 minutes into the show.
Exactly.
Oh God.
And they go, oh, right, this is the beginning. Okay.
After the quote-unquote cold open, yeah. I actually just watched pretty much the entire run of Seinfeld, so I was kind of glad that Netflix had that built-in function, because I would have probably just killed myself if I had to listen to that slap bass one more time. But I digress.
Which is not even a slap bass.
What is it?
That's a fucking synthesizer.
No, it's
Okay.
just a synth.
It's okay, Tony.
It's a
I guess that
fucking
makes
synth.
sense.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Tony just flipped the table over, ladies and
I'm
gentlemen.
a bass
He's
player.
very upset.
Those bother.
I'm gonna go back into Tony's wheelhouse in a little bit. We're gonna talk about some Foley stuff too, because since he mentioned this theme was kind of carried over for the series, it's nice when you get to have the same sort of like sound effects and things that you have become accustomed to while watching Star Wars. It makes the transition into this sort of medium a lot easier when there's a lot more familiar things. All right, cool. So now that we've got the theme song covered, we're actually going to dig into tonight's episode discussion.
And allow me to do this pretty quickly in the actual tone that they present the episode to us, which is fantastic. Terror at the temple. The Jedi Temple is in disarray after a vicious terrorist attack. Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka Tano set out to find the truth of who was really behind this horrendous catastrophe. Their investigation led them to discover the true saboteur, Leda Turmond. Now, the Jedi attempt to return the temple to normalcy. But first, Master Yoda must give a eulogy to the fallen Jedi warriors.
Since this thing is so complicated and we are kind of getting thrown into the middle of it, maybe we should kind of do a little bit of a backstory, because honestly, the first thing that we see besides the narration is Yoda surrounded by a bunch of
It's a
Jedi and
funeral.
well-wisher with a bunch of corpses in front of him, and he's just delivering a eulogy at a funeral. And I'm just like,
Which
Mike,
he
what the
can
hell did you get us
barely-
into?
He can barely see over the top of the table that all these
Yeah,
bodies
he's like
are laying
he's
on.
below these
So-
corpses. Yeah.
And of course, it comes in on this really low angle up on one where it's like, are we gonna see a pitched tent here? Like,
Oh,
because
no.
there's just these sheets draped over the dead bodies, and it comes in this low, like crotch level angle and kind of sweeps over to Master Yoda.
Tony, that's just their lightsabers. They get buried with them. It's totally fine. It's natural.
There is a great camera motion there, and I don't know if you want to start at like what happened before, but Ahsoka
Yeah, sure.
Tano, the sort of one of the primary characters who doesn't exist in the movies as far as I know. Been a
Yeah,
while
I
since
looked. I couldn't find. She, I think, acts as a sort of a messenger from, I think, the council to Obi-Wan or Anakin. And
Okay.
oh no, that's actually, I'm sorry, that's from the animated film. So she's not actually in the live action films as far as I know.
But
go
in
ahead.
this series, she is Anakin's Padawan, so she figures pretty as a primary character. But she looks over at another character and says, "Did you know one of the Jedi?" And the character says, "Oh yeah, I knew this one." And then the camera just pans slowly to a body with a sheet covering it, as if we all just, clearly that's the dead Jedi that
Oh,
she's
that's
talking
Bob.
about.
Okay.
This just random body with a sheet covering that looks like all of the other bodies with sheets covering it.
Right.
Except this one's pitching a tent.
Yeah, it was noticeable. He was known for his prowess back in the day.
I
Unfortunately,
want-
he is now departed.
Oh no. I want to be very honest. I was a little bit taken aback by how strongly worded and morbid Yoda's speech was.
Oh, it gets dark. This is one of those cartoons that falls in this magic space that I don't know what time it aired on the Cartoon Network, but it was probably that like 7 to 9 space where like, yeah, kids could watch it, but it was
Right.
late enough that like adults would be watching it. And
It was
so
that
I
Adult
feel
Swim
like,
lead in is what it was.
yeah, I feel like it was one of
Yeah.
those things
Exactly.
that was sort of written hoping adults would watch it, but was technically a children's cartoon. So they were like, yeah, we're going to just open on a funeral. And he's going to be like, all these people died, and we will miss them, but they'll be forever in our hearts. And you're just like, okay, that's all right. Good place to start.
Yeah, and he kind of carries over some of that dialogue too that you see in the movies. I just watched the prequels, so there's a couple scenes where Yoda has this dialogue that's sort of like, well, it's actually, I think sometimes Yoda, sometimes Mace Windu, where they're basically like, you have to learn to let go of the things that you're most afraid to let go of. So the Jedi kind of have this sense of the corporeal being and the physical body is only temporary. It's the spirit and whatever else that continues on after that. So they don't really seem to have this strong physical attachment necessarily. They have more of a spiritual context to it. So
Well, I imagine that comes from the fact that they're all looking at the ghosts of their friends all the time.
yeah,
Like-
the hologram ghosts. Yeah, exactly.
At any time, the ghost of your friend, like, you could be taking a dump and your friend would be like, hey, you're just like, come on, right now?
Come on, this is
When the
private
fuck
time,
did you
man.
become Hayden Christensen? Go away.
Oh, that's number two that bothers me
Worst.
from these
It's
movies.
the fucking worst.
Did you know
Or
that when you
that
die, you
guy.
go back to how you looked when you were 25?
Yeah, that's how
totally
death
awesome.
works. That's
In
how
heaven,
death
we're all
works.
25.
Oh man. But
My-
yeah, so no hologram ghosts in this episode, as far as I know. Just a bunch of
You just can't
corpses
see
spitting
them.
intent.
That's just
Yeah,
how
it's
it
true.
is.
I don't have enough midichlorian level
Mhm.
to see them.
But you know what you do see, which bothered the hell out of me in this episode.
Yeah.
Is the weird ass fucking shape of Yoda's head.
Okay, let's get into this animation
okay.
then,
Yeah.
Tony. I know you've been waiting.
So the animation style of this episode is just it's it's an exaggeration. It's like somebody did kind of a street artist rendering of each character. They're just exaggerated
Like a caricature.
Yes, thank you. But like just like a bigger eyes and tinier neck and waistline, and just stretched
Yeah, a lot
out.
of exaggerated features.
Yeah, and they do it with Yoda, which since we have such a tentative grasp of what Yoda's physiology looks like in general, any adaptation, any adjustment to it is just weird looking. And so they give him this like broader chin and jowl thing that's going on with his face that just bothered me. That like he just has this gigantic kind of bulbous head with this tiny little neck, but then the exact same body he has every place else.
Yeah.
Like that much doesn't change for him. He's still this tiny little guy with a big billowy cloak on the entire time, but just the shape of his head, it looked like made me think of from the Spider-Man movies, the Green Goblin
okay.
mask
I see that.
that they put on him. Just this, it looked like his normal head was underneath this visage that they added on top of. But
Man.
that was
No,
that was one of the
because
things in the
to-
animation style that just bugged the fuck out of me.
Because to your point with the animation style, like when you see Tarkin,
yeah,
you're like, holy shit, you are all chin and forehead
yeah.
Yeah.
and like a tiny little face in the middle.
And somehow, while everybody else is perfectly lit, I mean, Padma, when you see her, she's like perfectly lit in every scene.
Yeah.
He has bags under his eyes that looks like he's permanently got a light just sitting directly above his forehead, just casting these dark lines underneath his face, so that he just always looks dark and depressed. Same with Palpatine.
Yeah.
They do a lot of foreshadowing in this. It's almost
Yeah.
like a
They do
little
a lot of
wink,
shadowing
wink.
in
It's like,
this.
hey, look
Yeah, just general shadowing, foreshadowing, aft shadowing.
They're like,
side
look how
shadowing.
old and like kind of creepy dark Palpatine looks, even though
Yeah.
he's saying happy birthday to that guy. Wink, wink. No, the only thing that really bothered me was Ahsoka Tano, because they sort of did that stylized thing with everybody, right? Obi-Wan Kenobi had this sort of guillotine blade for a beard,
Yeah.
and it was all very sort of flat and stylized. But the only thing that I the whole time I watched it, I had trouble figuring out whether Ahsoka Tano was wearing a hat or whether that was part of her body.
Right.
Because the sort
I
of
still don't
tentacles
know.
they give a really hard brow line to, as if it's a hat she's wearing
Yeah.
on top
Yeah.
of her head.
But then when she gets that little cloak that she wears, and it like just puts it on over it, and has the two little ear type protrusions at the top stick through the cloak.
And
Yeah,
there are other species in the Star Wars universe too that look like her. They look
Yeah.
like they have the flesh that kind of flows up and back into these weird kind of like fleshy horn things. So I still have no idea.
And
if that's
Dave,
like a
we
headdress
see
or just her.
those characters in the prequels. as well. It's where they make their first appearance. I was under the impression that those are horns and actually attached to their body.
Right. Well, and you see those characters actually in this episode in the background of the funeral. There's an older one, and like you said, his forehead just flows into these two sort of drooping.
Okay.
I always saw them as tentacles because they seem kind of floppy. They don't seem rigid.
Yeah.
But hers have this line as if she were wearing some sort of hood or helmet that, was over her forehead, but they don't flow naturally back towards
Well,
it.
and then they take the beads that are attached to the back of it. They rip them from.
That's her Jedi beads.
Yeah,
That's
but
later.
that's somehow incorporated into that, either as just a lace that's stronger to stop. I don't know, but
It's interesting though, to say the least. It was definitely a little jarring for me the first time that I saw it, and not necessarily for this episode, but when I saw concept art, or I saw Tartakovsky's version versus this, it's a little jarring. It looks almost like kind of a somewhat crude sculpture approximation of each of these characters, so it takes a little getting used to. But once they get into the narrative and you hear the voices, that really helps go a long way.
Well, and they do some of the foreshadowing and stuff with Anakin in those too. I mean, his brow looks like the Thing, like Marvel, the Thing. Just the those really blocky brow lines, and they do a lot with that as far as kind of showing his emotions, like Mike was saying. Just letting him emote with that, but he always looks pissed, and it's just. It's a he's got resting bitch face in a terrible way.
You know who has a better one though? It's actually Admiral Tarkin. I think he probably has one of the
RBF.
Yeah, one of the best, because this guy just looks pissed off all the time, and it fits really well with this character too.
Just because it's
it'll never happen.
So crooked,
so out of place.
It's like Shrek's trying to smile.
I feel like I wouldn't want to see that though, because then bad things are about to happen if you see if you see that guy smile.
When he smiles, like someone in your family just died.
Yeah, at his hands.
So I want to say for Ahsoka, she is a Torgruta.
Yeah,
is her species,
Tortuga?
And they do have head tails, and so that's what that is. It's a head.
So we're calling. Hold on, we're calling that a head tail.
It's called a head tail.
I hate George Lucas sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. No, they're what Tony was talking about with like the very familiar wipes and things like that.
Yeah.
I gotta say I landed on the other side of that.
Oh, really?
A
Okay.
point in this episode where Tarkin grabs her chin, exactly like he grabs Princess Leia's chin.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, really? You had to do like, we know this happens later. We know what's gonna happen. And you're just like, come on, guys, you got more than one move. You got one move, and it's just.
But this is the reveal of Grand Moff Tarkin's chin fetish. So I mean that's a thing.
Well, let me
that in your books.
May I indulge you for a moment for these things that we have for Tarkin. He sets this up where he says he alludes to the fact that they are trying to remove Jedi from all military matters.
Right.
He talks. We have the line where he says that Jedi are peacekeepers, and he also says that Senator Palpatine rarely does he do anything without a strategy.
Exactly.
And also in this moment, we have Anakin saying the line, "Revenge is not the way of the Jedi." There are 4 major lines, and this is at about 10 lines of dialogue, and 4 of them are nods to what is about to happen canonically. And so you sit there listening to it like, I don't know, because it was the first episode that I've really watched of this, and because I think I'm also jonesing for some Star Wars now, this was a nice little kind of tip of the cap in my direction. So I got pumped about it. Yeah, exactly. I was just tapping my arm.
Tapping the veins.
Took my belt off, just tied it around my arm, and was just like, can't wait to mainline this Star Wars.
Well, this is a great
Star Wars.
This is a great episode because it sets into, I think originally season 6 wasn't actually aired, and it was only added to Netflix.
Correct.
You correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember reading that like season 6 never happened, and then they just put it on Netflix later because they had the episodes ready to go. So what we're seeing is episode 2 has happened. Clearly, Ahsoka Tano is not in episode 3, so she's got to go somewhere.
Right.
She's been in this whole series, and so she's got to leave somehow. And so we're now they're wrapping like the series up and going, okay, we're about to get to episode 3. And so
and we actually see where that. Yeah, we see the genesis of that, change in her character, that development in her character in this very episode. So it's really cool if you know kind of the broader story and how she got to where she is and where she goes on from here. But it's also cool just within the episode itself. I have to say, as a quick aside, kudos to Matt Lanter. who's the voice of Anakin Skywalker in this show, because you know, 1,000 times the range of Hayden Christensen from those fucking movies, man. I watched him deliver 4 different lines like, "This is the happiest I've ever been. I am outraged. I am ecstatic. Thank you so much." All with the exact same delivery, like zero range. He's a piece of wood. I can't watch those movies. Yeah, Hayden Christensen. Yeah, Matt Lanner is great. Matt Lanner within the show, he to me, he brings across the Anakin from the movies, but he actually adds some, dynamic delivery to his lines. Now, I mean, there's a lot that you do see that same kind of like reserved side of Anakin that's in here. But he definitely does heads above Hayden Christensen. That's just my 2 cents.
Also, a kudos to D. Bradley Baker for
always,
being 3/4 of the characters in the show.
Yeah,
exactly.
And having entire scenes where he just talks to himself 6 different times.
Right. Oh, that guy's amazing though.
Every single clone who ever said a line in the entire series, that guy.
That's all him.
If you ever watch, I think it's I Know That Voice. It's a voice actor documentary called I Know That Voice. He has this moment where they're just interviewing him on camera, and they just ask him how he makes like character voices or creature voices, and he just grabs like random stuff that's on his desk and just starts making these weird like space pig squealing noises by just like manipulating his face and just grabbing like a fishbowl and breathing into it, and it's just it's one of the most bizarre things you'll ever see, but that guy can do pretty much anything. So we can enjoy him in this series here. So yeah. So back to the plot real quick. The reason that we brought up Tarkin was that we learn, as Sean kind of briefly mentioned, there is a tension between the military side of things and then the Jedi Council.
Shocker.
So there's kind of this shocker. What a bit of foreshadowing there. So the conflict in this particular episode has to deal with the terrorist that is currently being held prisoner, called Letta, and I believe Mike mentioned her in the episode synopsis. So Letta is being held prisoner. At some point in this episode, the prisoner actually asks Ahsoka to come and talk to her. And that is kind of where we get into this inciting incident that leads Ahsoka to kind of go on the run. So, Mike, do you kind of want to walk us through what exactly happens when Ahsoka and Letta meet up? Which I think is for the first time. Is that correct? I don't think they knew each other before that.
They don't know each other. Letta is just a random person.
Okay.
Like you said, there's an explosion that kills some Jedi, so clearly the Jedi are interested in what happened. And they find out, I think in the episode previously, that Letta basically like injected her husband, I think, with explosive nanobots. And he went to work, and then they blew up, and that's what caused the explosion, which is pretty cold.
Yeah.
But so they find out it's her. She gets thrown in jail, and she says, "I'll only talk if I can talk to Commander Ahsoka Tano." Awesome, because she's like 14. That's cool.
Exactly.
Right.
So Ahsoka goes into the detention cell, which looks exactly like every detention cell ever looked like in Star Wars.
And before she does, she has to pass through the security gate where they make her leave her comlink and her lightsabers. Now that is lightsabers with an S at the end. She has dual wielding lightsabers, so she does actually have 2.
And so she goes in there alone, and she's talking to Letta, and Letta's like, "Hey, I need your protection. I know what happened, but you have to promise to keep me safe because they're going to try to kill me." And Ahsoka, of course, gives her the well, who's going to kill you? You're in a detention center. Nobody can get here. And then all of a sudden, Letta starts getting the force choke action.
Yeah, the old force choke.
And of course, Ahsoka throws her hands up, goes, "What's going on? Oh my gosh, I don't know." Everyone looks at it on the monitor. Looks like she's force choking Letta. So Letta's dead.
Because there's nobody else there. Who else could it possibly be?
She's in a detention cell. There's nobody there. She's got her hands up. Letta's force choking and dying. Clearly, she did it. The evidence is there. So they pick her up and say, we understand why you killed her. She just blew up a whole bunch of your friends, but still, that's illegal. You're going to jail.
I love that clone guard was basically, he walked in, he's like, "Well, I don't blame you, but we still got to take you in." Like, I love how chill he was about it. He's like, "I just watched you murder somebody in cold blood, but I get it. Come on over here."
If you watch the show and you see how indiscriminately clones are literally thrown in the trash can,
right?
Like if they don't pass school, if they grow up and don't pass school, in the trash can.
Ugh.
They're not even they don't even get to clean the floors. Like, they're just dumped. They're like, "We'll start over next week." So he's like, "I get it. I've watched 20,000 of my friends die. I would kill those people."
Yeah. No, so that's kind of how this whole thing gets set up, and this is within maybe the first like 5-6 minutes, because the bulk of this episode really revolves around what happens to Ahsoka next. So she's in jail. She kind of goes willingly. She doesn't fight her way out or anything. She's gonna let justice kind of prevail and work through the system. But you really start to get the hint as a viewer that she's being set up, especially when Tarkin comes to pay her a visit. Now you've got the Admiral coming to pay a Jedi, a visit in prison. And this is when he does that weird like chin grab thing and basically blames her for the murder. And you learn then soon that he's basically given orders to the guards not to let anybody else in. Now this was one of the best scenes I think for Anakin in this episode. So either Sean or Tony, if you had any thoughts on kind of Anakin's moment here, what you thought was going to happen.
Well, first I want to say that my Tarkin fanfic that I've been writing is all sexy chin grabs.
Oh, nice.
It's nonstop.
That's on point.
Him just grabbing chins and planting
chin.
kisses. Dem chins.
Dem chins. I don't know if you want to go with that one. That
Yeah,
could be
I do.
bad. Okay.
So I'm pretty excited about it.
All right.
Good.
If you're looking for any gifts for your friends for the holidays, Sean's Admiral Tarkin fanfic
Just send me
will be
a
on
chin.
your shelves soon.
Dem chin.
Dem
Dem chin.
chins.
It was an interesting scene because you know so much about where these characters eventually end up, in the storyline. You see really Anakin push to his extremes as far as pushing, like somebody basically telling him, no, you can't do that.
Right.
And of course it's, 3 clones who he could just murder with, the wink of an eye.
Yeah, just a thought. Yeah.
It's not nothing that he really needs to futz with, other than, it seems like he is held to this kind of higher esteem and this higher purpose of kind of holding together the Republic and abiding by these laws, even though
Right.
he's like, well, this is pretty much bullshit. But, and you see this little glint in his eye, like, oh, he's about to go off and just like level these 3.
Yeah, he
And-
gets like a tremor in his hand. He like clenches his hand, and I think that was still his human hand at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, but then he kind of grits his teeth and turns around and walks away. And it was one of those moments where I was like,
You kind of wanted him to just decimate
Oh, yeah.
the room.
I did.
I
yeah.
was waiting for those guards to just like burst into like blood shrapnel, just complete just
And
goo.
I enjoyed that, like, he's like, let me in. And they're like, no. He's like, let me in. And they're like, no. And then the guard behind the glass, like, sort of nods to the guys on the door. And they take a step toward him with their little
Yeah.
laser spears.
Yeah.
And the whole time through my head, I'm going, like, it's not going to matter.
like,
Like,
No.
if I were those guards, I would have been like, you got it, and just walked out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It's all yours, dude.
he's your problem now, Ted.
he says,
Yeah.
let me in again. I'm going to die before I can blink. So I'm just going to go that way.
Walk out the door, thermo detonator,
Yeah.
just throw it back in.
But they step
Peace.
up as if like he's just some schlub that they're going to be like, I'm going to zap you until you die.
Well, but it goes
Fuck
to your
you,
point,
fuck
though. I
you,
mean,
you're cool, fuck you, I'm out.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, right.
But Mike, it goes to your point that like these clones, they just follow orders, and
Yeah.
The fact that when we eventually get to Order 66, the fact that they don't really turn that down and say like, no, this isn't right. I mean, a lot of this is just hardwired into their programming. That's just how they are. They're told to follow orders, and they don't really question a lot of it. You do see a lot of the personality kind of come up in this series, though.
Yeah, I would dispute that a little bit just because there are other things where there is some individuality and some questioning of, yeah, we're clones, but why can't we not be soldiers? I don't like
Right.
shooting people. Can I not
Right.
shoot people?
So
But
that's
yeah.
why all the stormtroopers miss in the movies, because they don't actually want to be hitting people.
They're all
Is that-
secretly pacifists.
Yeah, they're all secretly like hippies. I don't really want to be here. If I just pretend to march and
If you
shoot
took
at
off,
people.
if you took off those stormtrooper helmets, they're filled with flowers.
Aw, so sweet.
Aw.
I picture the inside of their helmets are just all like decorated with like little decals and.
Lisa Frank stickers.
Oh,
Guys, set your blasters to hug.
Oh. I want to get to the stun part because
Oh,
that's
yes.
my favorite.
Yeah.
Okay, so which part did you want to get to? Because
Well,
basically
so-
from this point on, it's just like a long running chase scene, which has
Mhm.
great nods to some of the best chase movies in kind of Hollywood history, which we'll talk
But it's
about.
also
in a
this
second,
like comedy of errors for her.
Yeah.
Right. So
yeah.
like,
well, it's
she's
a
in
setup.
jail,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden she's like, man, Also, she keeps calling him Master, and it's just weird. Like I don't.
It's
I got
better
a
than
I got a really
it's better than
sexual vibe
Sky
off of
Guy.
it, but
Dude, it's better than Sky Guy. I could not take that in the early episodes.
Wait, where is Sky Guy? What?
In the early episodes, she used to call him Sky Guy, and it used to drive me crazy. I couldn't watch
Shut
it
up.
after a while.
But when she says like "coming master," I just like I envision her in the next scene just like with a ball gag. I just like it's really weird.
Yeah.
Anyway,
50
so-
Shades of
my
Ahsoka.
Sky Guy
Yeah.
fanfic that I'm writing is all about ball gags.
Sean's just taking down notes this entire
So,
time, by the way.
Scribbling on my arm.
further on in the episode, Ahsoka Tano
With a
finds
knife.
herself in jail.
With a knife.
So
she
that's where
finds
we are,
herself-
ladies and
She finds
gents, yeah.
herself in jail, and she's
Right.
like, "Man, jail sucks." And then she notices there's a key guard on the ground in front of the jail cell, and she's like,
How
"Awesome."
convenient.
And
Master.
she immediately, yeah.
She immediately Jedi lifts the thing and opens the door, and then she walks out into the main hallway where she's being kept at the detention center, and everyone's had their ass kicked.
Yeah, and at this point, you don't know, like, all the guards are laying on the ground. Like, are they unconscious? Are they dead? It does escalate. So
Well,
at
she
this
thinks
point,
that
they're just kind of
Skywalker's let her
unconscious.
out, right? She thinks like,
Yeah.
okay, Anakin's like doing me a solid.
So he
me
just
out.
choked him out, and yeah, exactly. And you see them kind of coming back into consciousness too. So you're like, okay, they're not dead, so maybe things are fine.
But she does react because she steps into this room and she's now standing in the middle of 3 or 4 unconscious, possibly dead clones.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh man, if anybody walks in, this is going to look really bad. And of
Exactly.
course,
Somebody
dude walks right in from lunch and he's like, what? And she goes, oh shit. And she just picks her lightsabers up
Yeah.
and her comm link, which is buzzing. And then she says hello and no one talks to her. And she starts running away. And then, she's running, people are chasing her, and then she turns a corner. And of course, the only time she stops is to look at these 3 dead bodies.
Right.
That are
And
in
now
a
they
random
are
hallway.
actually dead. Super
Yeah,
dead.
now they're 3 dead bodies in a hallway, and she looks again and goes, oh shit, this looks bad for me. And of course, someone comes around the corner and is like, she killed those guys. She's like, I really didn't. And they start shooting at her, so she runs away again.
Yeah, and this is pretty much like, this is kind of the beginning of just the rest of the episode is a chase scene. So eventually Anakin he comes back in with, do you know who Rex is, Mike?
Yeah,
Yes.
so the clones, this is one of my favorite parts about the clones. The clones have numbers, right? They're effectively human robots in the sense that like the people that make them could give 2 shits who they are. So you're like, you're 1357, you're 1358, go have fun. But they give themselves names, and so Rex is a commander who has sort of made a reputation for himself. You can see from his armor, he's got a bunch of hash marks on it from all the droids he's knocked out. His armor's kind of beat up.
Right.
This guy's seeing some shit, and he's Rex. He calls himself Rex.
Yeah,
but
and he's right there with
well-known-
Anakin.
Yeah, he's well known amongst the Jedi. He's worked with them a lot, and so he's sort of a well-known character, even though to look at, he's exactly the same as the rest of the clones. He's distinguished himself, and he's been given sort of a specific name to identify him. But he's worked with them in the past, which is why he kind of vouches for her.
Yeah, which was great because Anakin kind of comes in as one of the other guards is giving a shoot to kill order. He's basically, he's set off the alert. The whole base is now alarmed to Ahsoka's escape, and he's set off the shoot to kill order. So Anakin comes in. He's like, belay that. We need to just get her back here, stun her at most, and then we just need to talk to her. But please don't kill her. So the rest of this episode is Ahsoka running around and doing a really good job at escaping pretty much the entire base full of people and her master as well. I mean, she finds ways out of these situations that are like, you keep watching and you're like, oh, they got her. Nope, she's gone. Oh, they got her now. Nope, she's gone. And it's great. It was a really fun way to just kind of watch how one really powerful Jedi can just kind of evade this almost entire like battalion and her own master. Now, at the same time, they weren't exactly trying to kill her. So
the thing that made me so they Anakin yells, set your weapons to stun.
Yeah.
He also at some point is yelling into his comm as he's running, do not shoot to kill.
Oh, that drove me crazy.
And then he waits for like 3 seconds, shoot to kill, and I'm waiting for that guy in the helicopter to be like, wait, did you say shoot to kill?
I heard shoot to kill. Shoot to kill.
I heard shoot
it's
to
like,
kill.
why would you say that? You never say it in like the positive, like, I don't know what you would say, but that was driving me crazy.
But
too.
she's
Like if
running
there's any
away from
static on the line, then she's dead. Yeah.
She's running away from the stun blast, which are little rings.
Yeah,
and I had this just vision in my head of Sonic the Hedgehog.
Oh,
because
definitely.
she's running and she's kind of doing flips. She's sort of flipping, and all these rings are around her. And I was like,
there's gonna be one she just dives through and completely clears.
She is cleaning up in this video game.
Gotta go fast.
And then she hit those spikes and lost them all. That was the worst part.
Did anyone notice the memorial in the background? This is a weird side note. When she first comes outside, and she's hiding by the statue, and the dog thing tries to sniff her out.
Right.
Yeah.
The background is this big golden monolith that has a bunch of writing on it, and it really reminded me of like the Vietnam Memorial. And I was like, oh man, is that like a cool here are our fallen heroes kind of memorial thing? It was just an interesting like there would be no reason for it other than somebody was like, hey.
Well, I want to ask then, Mike, if it's to honor the fallen.
It's Jedi.
Oh, Jedi. Okay, I was gonna say if it's to honor clones that have fallen, is it just numbers?
Well, it's in
because that almost seems more disrespectful.
It's in some sort of script. It's in that that Star Wars script where they look at it and you're like, that's clearly not words, but they can read it.
Yeah.
In actuality, it's not numbers. They just add another tally mark.
I have
it's just a bunch of hash marks.
I have no actual idea what it is, but it looks like it's probably Jedi.
Just notches on a bedpost.
Oh, that's what that was. Mom, yeah, somebody's bedpost. Okay. No, it's I don't know. I thought it was kind of cool. It's just this big golden monument that really you could perceive them making this the show and going like, why are you putting that in there? Like, well, they'd have that. Like that took some thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, like who knows? Maybe that's where they laid the other Jedi to rest, and that's how far away they are from that resting place. Who knows? I'm sure somebody out there knows who's listening, so please let us know. But now I think we need to get into probably my favorite kind of reference in this particular episode. And of course, I'm talking about this chase, this foot race through. It's not exactly a sewer system. It looks kind of like a ventilation tube, some sort of vented maze of
just
tunnels.
Happens to be filled with dirty water.
Yeah,
Some
dirty
water
water,
at the
but with
bottom,
also fans for some reason.
Hey, Dave, real quick.
Yeah.
Before there is a moment where Ahsoka she jumps off of the top of where she had been perched and hiding on top of the statue, and she jumps. It looks like 20 feet down.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of tumbles.
Oh yeah.
And that's the point where the main like blaster cannon starts shooting at her that she's outrunning. I want to note that she jumped down like 20-25 feet into like a roll, bounced up, stuck the landing, still running. That's important because later on we got some more acrobatics.
However, for the first time in all of television, cartoon, video game, etc. history.
Ooh, this is an exclusive.
Someone looked up.
That's true.
Because she hides by jumping on top of that statue.
Yeah, they shine like a light up.
There's nobody here.
Yeah.
And then the next guy out the door is like, he looks up and goes, she's on top of the statue.
She's in plain sight.
For the first time
if you just
ever
look
in
up.
history, somebody looked up. That guy gets a medal.
Yeah.
This is true because I've been playing a lot of Assassin's Creed lately.
That's what I was gonna say.
You get like 5 feet in the air and you can walk past fucking anybody because
walk
nobody
on
ever
people's
goes
heads.
slightly above their eye line.
And you're walking past them, dropping like flakes of paint and everything on their face, and they're just like, that's just rain.
Well, and all those soldiers
this is a
had
shitty
those
house.
guards.
I was honestly stunned because I was like, oh, she's on top of the statue. She's like free and clear.
Good. Yeah, she's good.
And a second later, someone saw her, and I was like, wait, who saw her? He wasn't even in a plane like on level with her. He was down on the ground. So
but
I was
they,
honestly stunned when I saw that because I was.
Well, they had
impressed.
they had the dogs with them too, and as we all know, dogs can't look up, so she was safe from them as well.
Dogs are also idiots, so when they smell things, which is their only job, the handler's like, "You're an idiot. Come here. Let's go the other way."
No, you're fine. Everything's fine here.
There's
the
nothing
handlers
there,
are always
dummy.
idiots.
Let's go the other
Dogs
way.
are the best. The handlers
I
are
want to
idiots.
say, in the defense of dogs, that was not the dog's fault.
No.
The
No,
dog
that's the
did
handler.
his job.
That's the
That's what I
handler.
mean.
Dogs are wonderful creatures.
The dog did his job, and the handler, whose job it is to like let the dog lead him, is like, "You're stupid. Let's go the other way."
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to the fugitive reference here now. So they're running through
thank
these.
you.
Through
I'm
these
not
tunnels.
the only one who thought this.
Yeah,
Right?
no, it was 100%.
This is great.
It was 100% fugitive. So basically, in this point, Ahsoka is Harrison Ford, and Anakin is Tommy Lee Jones at this point because the rest of the guards and soldiers are chasing after, but she kind of loses them in this maze of tunnels. Anakin's running along, and then he kind of gets like a sense to go in the direction that she ran to, and you get this final kind of confrontation with Ahsoka at the edge of one of these tunnels that kind of opens up and looks down to just this giant pit. Now, it's not into like a waterfall or anything like that. It's just, I don't know, it looks almost like a transportation column or something that's just built into the city, into this tower. But basically, Anakin confronts her there. And this is kind of like the pivotal scene between the two of them that sets up Ahsoka's character development for the rest of this series. This did not end the way that I thought it was going to end. So, Tony, what was your reaction to this scene, other than including the fugitive reference?
This was another scene where in my own head I had mapped out what was going to happen, and kept waiting for her to just turn back to Anakin and go, "I didn't do it," and Anakin would go, "I don't care."
That would have been great. I don't care.
I was so waiting for that to happen.
Not too far off though.
No, they're not, and the dialogue kind of dances around the but he's basically saying turn yourself in. It's the only way that you can clear your name.
Right.
And she's going, that's not true. And he goes, you have to trust me. She goes, I do trust you, but you know that this is impossible. I trust you, but you're lying to me is basically what she's saying.
Well, basically it's like, I know that you believe me, but I also know that no one else will, and therefore turning myself in is the worst thing I could do.
And she's, to her defense on that, she's now seen multiple instances of the perfectly terrible thing has happened. She comes out and there's a bunch of dead bodies, and there's her 2 lightsabers in her comm link laying in the middle of the floor, whereas they've been locked up in a locker before that. Picks them up and runs, goes and sees another set of dead bodies, that goes and gets outside, and she's got.
And this is all on security footage too. Yeah, they've got these like security cams all over the place.
Even the murder, they have the security footage, but conveniently the audio wasn't working. In
funny
cell
about that.
When they did it. All these little things that are just perfectly the worst thing that could happen for her. And not everybody else has seen it from this perspective. They just, Anakin just trusts her inherently.
Right.
But I could see easily how the Jedi Council, for instance, would look at this and go, yeah, she's, this looks like a murder. But at any rate, no, and so they get to the edge, and just like in Fugitive, there's that turn and jump moment.
Yep.
And despite the fact that Anakin could easily just jump out there and follow her, he just kind of lets her go.
It would have been great if she jumped and he just like force held her in the air and just pulled her back into the
Like,
tunnel.
whoa, come back here.
Get your ass back here.
That is one of my favorite things about Star Wars in general, is like they have these just incredible powers.
Oh yeah.
And yet
they're very selective about what they use.
They're like, there's time where like Darth Vader will just beat you to death with stuff he's picking out of the air.
Right.
And then you never ever see him use it ever again. He's like, man, I really want that sandwich, and he walks over and gets it.
Yeah. Or like Yoda. Yoda can hold up like.
He can move a car.
Yeah. Or like Yoda. I was watching an earlier episode where Yoda is literally holding like half of the mountaintop in the air above him and a bunch of clone troopers, and he just kind of moves it to the side. And then you watch the very next movie, and he's kind of struggling to lift like one of those chairs in the Senate, and he's just like,
he's walking with a cane. Yeah.
It's very selective. It depends on how much budget they have left, I guess, to see what they want to do. But
so I want to ask the question. So Ahsoka, she does.
Speaking of 20-foot falls.
Yeah. So again,
that's her force jump.
This is not a 20-foot fall.
In a second. Yeah.
It is a force jump.
I mean, it had to have this ability. She's super acrobatic, but she can do this thing called a force jump, where I guess she can either jump extremely high using the force as an assist, or she can kind of like dampen her fall.
Okay.
I think that's just a way, that's a MacGuffin kind of like right in. Yeah.
Because it looked like a force-free fall, and then at the end she does a forward somersault flip and lands perfectly. Now, it's been a long time since I've taken a physics class, but if you're in free fall and then you do that action, I believe you build more momentum.
She's saying she would have broken the ship in half.
She should have technically gone right through.
You should have just shot like a bullet right through the
right.
ship, yeah.
I have knowledge of exactly this.
Good.
Okay.
I'm glad I brought this up.
You're going to learn something about me. I went to space camp when I was a kid.
How about that?
Yes.
And while I was at space camp, my favorite activity that we did there was there was a I think they called it like a space station builder. But what it basically was this harness that you like jumped on like you're riding a horse, and there's 2 pulley lines that are attached to that go up over your shoulders, and then they go up 30 feet in the air up to this crane arm. Crane arm is connected on the backside, comes down to a set of weights. They put the equivalent of like 5/6 of your weight. They weigh in before you get on this. They put 5/6 of your weight on the opposite side.
Okay.
You weigh 1/6 of your actual weight, which is roughly I think it was what it was. It was but that's about what you would weigh on the moon compared.
Okay.
So you're able to sit in this thing and jump like 35 feet straight in the air as like a 6th grader, and it was, and so the goal was that we got the pieces down on the ground and we had to jump up and assemble them up in the air. And so you could jump up and with your pinky finger, you could hold yourself up there while you assemble the piece and then let go and drop back down.
More importantly, when you come down, you don't break your legs.
Right, because it's you know,
This is the worst space camp ever.
It's only 30 pounds coming down, which your legs can easily absorb. So the fact that we're in space, there is no completed statement as far as what the gravity is on this planet. So it could be possible that it could just be extremely lightweight. Possibly that they have on the spaces where people normally walk increased gravity, a la Star Trek. So
I like it, Tony. I like it, Tony. I like where your head's at.
I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt on this one.
You're overthinking this. It's Star Wars. Move on. Like that's. I feel like no. That's Star
Guys,
Wars.
it's just
I'm going to go with you're wearing a Wookiee costume. Back the fuck off.
No. One of the things I love about Star Wars, it's unapologetic. Who said we can't? Go ahead and stop us. Yeah. That's Star Wars. Like, she fell 100 feet, flipped, and landed. Whatever.
Whatever.
Sure.
Ship's fine.
And it's also cartoon. It's also cartoon Star Wars. So we've got cartoon logic and Star Wars logic.
I really just wanted
together.
to brag that I went to space camp when I was a kid.
No,
I
Tony,
actually
that was
had
a great
different
story.
impression of that scene. That scene reminded me more of The Fifth Element.
Okay, fair.
At the very beginning where she busts out of jail, only because there are spaceships floating around and she does that big free fall. Like, in The Fugitive, he sort of does like the Michael Jordan jump and like, he doesn't like free fall, face first, but like stomach first, and she does what Lilu does, dives out, head first, goes straight down and lands in his taxi cab.
See, except she busted through the roof of a taxi cab, whereas Ahsoka just kind of like, I'm not getting into this because I think it's totally fine.
Well, yeah, to be fair.
But at least in Fifth Element, she did, kind of obey physics somewhat by busting through the metal and insulation of the taxi cab.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give all of these laws of physics a multipass.
Yes.
They don't have to.
Yes.
Yeah, she knows it's a multipass.
Yeah, we know it's a multipass.
We know it's a multipass, Sean.
Yeah, we know it's a multipass.
So I want to give you guys a chance now. This is pretty much the end of this episode, at which point I just wrote the end with a shitload of question marks. I didn't realize it was a 4-part story arc. But I want to give you guys a couple seconds to kind of...
Mark.
What's that?
That's the point, the end question mark.
Yeah, and it makes you click over to the very next episode streaming on Netflix. So I want to give you guys a chance to kind of briefly go through maybe what happens in the next episode or how this arc kind of wraps up and where that leaves Ahsoka and kind of where she's headed.
So I think if we're going to go for this, we have to go a la the announcer and go, spoiler alert!
Yeah,
you're about to hear what happens through the last few episodes.
I'm going to leave the room, so I'll come
this,
back in a second.
Fast forward at least a few minutes in this podcast, or move on to the next episode. Mike, take it away.
Thanks, announcer.
Can I give you what my idea is?
Oh, I want to hear your guess, and I want to see her.
It's Barriss, right?
Who is?
Barriss is sort of the woman that we see at the very beginning.
Yeah.
At the episode, it's Barriss. Which
we'll say we flubbed on that because we didn't mention her in this episode yet. But
is that the girl? Was that Ahsoka's friend?
It's Ahsoka's friend.
The girl that knows the dead Jedi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so she's very distraught in the beginning, and it winds up being her.
Yeah. So the next episode picks up where this one left off. She's now a fugitive. Right. She actually gets I believe she gets arrested again. It's been, I don't know how the whole thing ends, but basically she ends up working with Asajj Ventress, who is Count Dooku's old apprentice.
Mm-hmm.
Who Dooku sent on a suicide mission, but she didn't die, and she's like, oh, fuck that guy. I'm not your apprentice anymore, and I'm going to come back and try and kill you. So she's sort of freelance. She find out there's a bounty on Ahsoka Tano's head. She wants to collect the bounty.
And a little revenge on the way.
Yeah, and then Ahsoka Tano is like, hey, don't collect the bounty. I'll put in a good word for you because I know you're not working for Dooku anymore, and then maybe they'll just leave you alone and you won't be a fugitive anymore. To which Ventress is like, cool, let's do it.
It seemed like it happened a little too quick.
There's a lot of stuff in the show, and this is what the show does really well, where you sort of blur the lines of like maybe she was like coerced into being his apprentice. Maybe she didn't really know the whole story.
Right.
Like,
I think there's
times
a little
where
bit
they work
of
together grudgingly.
There's a little bit of a balance too, where it's like Ahsoka is completely outmatched. Like is the kind of overtones of this is that which as they are both apprentices. What's the other one's name?
Ventress.
Ventress is
she's like an elite assassin. I mean, like
she's
that's how everyone knows
farther
her.
along, and they both are dual lightsaber fighting methods, and so there's a lot of parallels. But at the end of the day, it's like a 14-year-old taking on like a 22-year-old.
But they are well known to each other, and Ventress is well known within the series, so it's not weird that she says, "Okay, cool." They end up going to a warehouse where there's a bunch of nanobots.
Let me point this out. They mentioned that the level that they need to go to is 1315.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a Star Wars game that was canceled a couple years ago that was called Star Wars 1313, which was supposed to take place, I believe it's the same planet.
Coruscant, yeah.
Yeah, Coruscant. And it's the seedy underbelly of Coruscant.
Which is where that giant hole goes to, basically. Coruscant. My understanding of Coruscant is it's just one giant city.
Yeah, it's like a city
planet. They just kind of
planet.
bored through the middle of it, and like they've just
the whole like basically it's like the drainage ditch that goes down into the actual. It makes me think of Futurama with New York. And old New York is just you can just climb down through the bottom of New York and you're on old New York.
Right.
It's that kind of feel that it's this dark space that's only lit by the man-made
like the
lighting
lights
and
above,
everything that are
artificial.
down there. And of course they have. I laugh my ass off because the first time they get down into the space, there's this police car that floats down and it's painted in black and white and it's got red and blue flashing lights, and I'm like, oh, that's so they don't have to explain that these are police to little kids. They'll go, oh, those are police.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then they move on through and come to find out that that they wind up getting separated, and it looks to Ahsoka like Ventress set her up and put her in this space, but it all traces back to all the information that they've been getting is coming from
Barriss.
Yeah, so I think my favorite part of this is
I'm terrible with names, so I'm just pointing
separated.
to everybody else when I forget a name.
All good.
Just so the audience at home knows this, I'm terrible about this, so I'm just pointing to Mike or pointing to Sean whenever I need a name filled in.
What I love is they get separated. Ahsoka gets attacked by what she thinks is Ventress, but Barriss has attacked Ventress and stolen her mask.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she then goes and attacks Ahsoka. Ahsoka gets arrested, and they're like, oh, how convenient that we arrested you in a big factory full of explosive nanobots.
Right.
And subsequently, she's part of the Jedi Council. She's a Jedi, which just sort of operates kind of outside the sphere of influence of the Republic. And sort of internal Jedi matters are internal Jedi matters. And the big deal is they strip her of her Jedi status. They take the braid away, and they're like, no, now you can be tried by the Senate. And she's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
I'm one of you guys. I told you I'm innocent, and you need to back me up on this. And they're like, it's politically kind of squishy for us, so we're going to move it. So, of course, she gets proven innocent. Eventually, they find out it's Barriss. And there's this fantastic scene at the end of the last episode of the arc where the Jedi Councils, they're all sort of looking at their shoes, kind of like, yeah, so we're really sorry that we, excommunicated you and stuff. You want to come back? And she's just, no. That was shitty. I'm leaving.
I like it.
And my mind exploded. I was like, are you kidding me? She just said no to the Jedi? Because she's still a Jedi, right? She's still Jedi stuff.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now she's kind of like this, just kind of like a renegade, just kind of out on the lam kind of thing. And I don't want to give away too much because we are going to be talking Star Wars Rebels
I was going to
in an
say,
upcoming episode.
Dave, it's almost like she's a rebel, but you beat me to that segue, so thank you, buddy.
Yours was so much better, though.
Nah,
almost like
you
she's
got
a rebel.
there.
But that sort of encompasses the whole thing, right? Jedis are you're like, oh, Jedis are great, right? Luke Skywalker, he's awesome, he's good, he's always good, doing good stuff. But in this whole series, there are times when you're like, you know what? I kind of get what the Separatists are doing.
Yeah,
they seem all right to me. Like they seem like pretty nice people. They're just they live really far away, and their government's not working for them.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that Amidala brings that up. I think I can't remember if it's episode 2 or episode 3, but she actually brings that point up to Anakin. I think it's episode 3. She says, do you ever stop to think that maybe we're on the wrong side? That maybe the Republic is now more of a dictatorship and it's not really helping people. So maybe the Separatists, like you said, have the right idea. So it's interesting that they continue that train of thought in the series too.
Now, Dave, is that before or after he's given her the old Force push?
The old Force push.
Man, you really wanted to work that.
The old Force babies.
I was in my head. I was like, I got it. Let me have this one.
Oh, and Padma does show up as the defense. She's the defense attorney, basically.
Because why introduce a new character? You know her already.
Yeah, you know her.
You know the spinoff. It was a Star Wars intergalactic lawyer, right?
Law and Order Coruscant.
Yeah,
dun, 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 dun,
I would watch that.
Dun.
Admiral
Wow,
Tarkin.
wow.
I'd
Admiral
watch
Tarkin,
that.
played by Jerry Orbach.
Oh no, you guys are joking, but I'd watch. Anything else from this episode or this series before we get to some reviews?
No, let's do these reviews. I know that we have some interesting reviews, Dave. I want to. I know that you mentioned that you. So I'm gonna talk for everybody that's on the show right now and say that I believe that we all really enjoyed this show, but every once in a while, other people have a difference of opinions, and those people are wrong. But we'd like to at least talk about them a little bit and shed some light on this. And so, Dave, I think you have a really interesting one that you'd like to share with us, correct?
Yeah, we got a couple here that there were a bunch of these online, and most of the fans they love this show. They were a little cautious at first when they saw the initial movie or the first couple of episodes, but they really got into it, and a lot of these fans left huge, lengthy reviews. These two are some of the shortest that I found. They're also really bad translations from non-English languages. So I do not fault the people who wrote these for the terrible grammar, but they do make me laugh. So we're gonna go with the first one here from Iago y Silvi from Spain. It is titled "Very Good, but Within Soul," and I believe it is 7 out of 10 stars. 22 chapters and 3 more. The film, in fact, was 3 chapters. I don't know what the hell that means. In this 25 episodes, almost 10 are really good, another 10 are good, and 5 are bad. The series have all what a fan could expected, but there's not something. Maybe the magic. Maybe you could say soul. Named as you wish. The action is very cool, and the chapters are very accepting, but, as I said, there's something that is not. I think that many people would love that cartoon, but much more people don't mind at all. In the last chapter, there's a new character that maybe could give to the series that magic. His name is Cade Bane, and is a bounty hunter. Is not the best, but is cool and funny. Great is not the word, but good enough. I think that's going to be my mantra for the rest of my life. Great is not the word, but good enough.
But good enough.
We're going to put that on a
Cad Bane
t-shirt.
is pretty badass. He factors in a little bit.
Is it Cade Bane? Is it
It's
Cad Bane?
Cad Bane.
Cad Bane, okay.
Yeah.
It's short for Cadbury.
Yeah, I was going to say, is he related to the bunny?
He's sort of like the intergalactic combination of Django and Rango.
Interesting.
He really like
Rango
he
the lizard
sort of
that
looks
Johnny
like a
Depp played?
lizard,
Okay.
But he acts
And
and
Django.
dresses like Django from Django
Dresses
and
like
Django.
Django and
Stop
okay.
it.
Awesome
Django
rifle,
and Rango.
cool hat, looks sort of like a lizard. It's pretty great.
I like
Oh
it.
my god.
I think we have another poorly translated review out there. Sean, is this one yours?
We do. This one is from. Is it
It's like Libsorg.
Libsorg from France? It's titled.
Like gross bill. Just
Yeah,
backwards.
they just backed it up. Yeah.
Oof. It's titled "Not for the Real Fan," capital F in fan. Kindly enough, they say this review may contain spoilers. I give an 8 for the quality, but I only give a 2 for the story. Why did they choose the Clone Wars period? There's no more surprise for us. Bad guys will not die in this series. Good guys neither. No new weapons, no new development of the main characters. So what we have here? Nice space battles, nice Jedi battle, and that's all? I hope to see one day an adaptation of another period with the same technology. We need to see the story after the episode 6, the exploitation of the Solo twins, Mara Jade, Thrawn, etc. Not an new version of the Clone Wars. Clone Wars is good for the, air quotes, goodies, but not for the fan. There is also some, air quotes, goofs, as the communication in hyperdrive, in parentheses, impossible in a majority of the book, end parentheses, or the C-3PO invincibility in the episode number 4. Deception.
That's the part that killed me. This is the end.
Just deception?
That needs to be the other side of the T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Just on the back. On the back is just
the
deception.
word. Great is not the word, but good enough. On the back side, Deception. Ellipsis.
Ellipsis on both sides.
Yeah. Double-sided ellipsis.
You should
I
mention
really
that
want
this
to
was
know
a
when
5 out of
C-3PO
10
became
stars.
5 out of 10 stars.
5 out of 10 stars. I really want to know when C-3PO became invincible, by the way, and why he doesn't use that more often.
I believe episode number 4 of the first season is when
Apparently,
C-3PO becomes
yeah.
invincible.
Yeah,
Well,
get on Ilborg's level.
Deception.
Come on, man.
Well, listen up, Libsorg. I got some good news for you. Episode 7 is coming out in just a couple of weeks, so you will be able to see the story after the episode 6 and the exploitation of the Solo twins. So you're all set. It's that time of the show where we are going to turn it over to our very special guests and give them a chance to let you guys know what they are up to in the area. Again, Mike, thank you very much for coming back to the show. What do you have for the folks out there in listening land?
Well, thanks for having me. It was a great time. Love the show. As always, I'm usually running my coffee shop in Washington, D.C., Flying Fish Coffee and Tea, and also my band. We're called Signal 30. We're recording an EP, I would call it, probably about 5 songs, and so
Nice.
that should be out in the internet airspace
On
sometime
vinyl?
in the next 6 to 8 weeks. No,
Is it
we're
coming
not
on
cool-
vinyl?
We're not cool enough for vinyl.
Oh,
That's
no.
why.
Okay.
I'm going to venture to say Bandcamp.
No, we'll throw it on iTunes. We'll be,
Cool.
We'll
if
go
you want to
legit
pay for
with
it.
it.
It's we've been doing the recording. It sounds really great. I'm proud of it. I'm really happy to be a part of it. So check it out.
What's the band name again? I missed it.
Signal 30.
Signal 30. Thank you so much. And speaking of thank you so much, Tony, thanks again, buddy.
Aw, thank you so much.
Man,
Always
which
a pleasure,
episode?
sir.
Which episode is this? You might be like after Sean and myself, and possibly Matt Barron. You might have
Possibly
the most.
Matt Barron.
Possibly Matt Barron. You might have the most episodes under your belt there, Chief.
I'm getting there. Mel's got quite a few at this point too, doesn't she?
I think you guys are both in like the 6 or the 6 range.
Okay, sounds right. Sounds about right. Well, yeah, but always a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me back. I am of course doing Crowded Elevator videos. We're doing that on a regular basis now. So check out vimeo.com/crowded elevator for our most recent films. We're about to put up one that we just did back in October for 72 Film Fest, which won the audience award from that festival, which is awesome. And I think could have gotten a little more, but and moving on. But that one we're going to be doing an extended cut from that film that we'll be posting. And then I'm also now doing some improv. I have followed in the footsteps of one Sean Paul Ellis, and I have started a troupe with my classmates, and we are called Trust Fall. We will be performing at DCAC in Adams Morgan, Washington D.C. on December 9th at 7 p.m. So if you have a chance, come out and see us make shit up, kind of like we do on.
Very cool, man. And where can the folks find you guys on social media?
The coffee shop has a Twitter, DC Flying Fish. We also have an Instagram under the same name. I do not have any of those personally.
Probably a smart move.
I'm a bit of a Luddite, and I'm proud of it.
That's right.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Big Tony VT, and as I mentioned before, find on Vimeo.com/crowd.
Awesome. Sean, what do you have going on?
I've got a bunch of shows as a part of WIT's seasonal disorder run this December. I know this is currently December 7th when everybody's listening to this, so there are a bunch more shows for people to check out. I believe they're going all the way until Sunday, December 20th. So you can find out all the tickets and stuff on witdc.org. You can come out if you're in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. I'd love to have you. It'll be a ton of fun, and you can see me. I'm performing with my group Knox, and yeah, it'll be a good time. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Sean Paul Ellis.
Awesome. And you can find me over at collider.com. That's where I do a lot of the recaps of some of your favorite TV shows like Arrow, The Flash, and The Walking Dead. I actually want to give a quick shout out to a previous guest on this show, Max Nicholson. He's a freelance writer. He sometimes writes for us over at Collider. He has a great article called The Star Wars Comprehensive Guide to Watching... This would be an incredibly long headline if I said the actual thing, but it's basically a comprehensive guide to watching all the Star Wars stuff in canon, and we will have a link to that up on our page with all the show notes, along with all the contact information for Mike, Tony, and Sean and their calendar of events. You can find me on Twitter at DrClawMD. You can find out more about the show, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. Remember, that's morning with a U. You can find us on Twitter at MorningTunes. Check out Sean's handiwork over at our Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. We got a Facebook page. We got a YouTube account. You can listen to us each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher, and you can send us an email, let us know how we're doing. SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. We will be continuing our Star Wars month here with Star Wars Rebels next time on the show. We just wanted to say thanks again to Mike and Tony for joining us for this very special episode. And thank you guys very much for listening. And thanks, Sean, for just being one of the best clones a buddy could ask for.
Aw,
That's adorable.
Christmas clones. So sweet. Thank you guys for listening. We will see you next time.